message bubble sits there, stubborn and quiet, while your kitchen light hums and the tea you made goes cold. Last night he was warm, almost boyish, like he forgot his own armor for a minute. This morning, nothing. You stare at your phone and your mind starts writing a story without asking your permission. In your head you replay the moment you said, "I feel safe with you," and his face changed like someone pulled a curtain. He smiled, but his eyes went somewhere else. You almost text. You do not. You watch your thumb hover, and you hate how quickly your hope turns into self-doubt. Jung used the word shadow for the parts we push away and pretend we do not have. In plain life, it is the place where old heartbreak, shame, and unmet needs get stored until love touches the lock. When you reach the quiet place in him, it can feel like an internal battlefield. Not because you are too much, but because being seen asks him to stop performing and start telling the truth. It was 7:03 p.m. when the waitress set the water down and the candle made everything look kinder than it really was. The restaurant was small, the kind where you can hear other people trying not to be overheard. And the silver spoon on the saucer kept catching little flashes of light. He leaned in when you spoke, nodding like he was absorbing you, like he was letting you matter. You were not trying to be profound, not trying to pull a confession out of him. You just said, almost offhand, "You are gentle." The word landed between you like a warm cloth, and for a second his face softened in a way that felt private, like you had seen a boy inside the man. Then the shift. His smile stayed, but his fingers started moving the spoon in tiny circles, metal ticking against porcelain. He asked you about your schedule next week, about a show he started watching, about anything that could keep the air from getting too honest. You watched him talk faster, and you felt that strange ache of being close to someone who suddenly steps back without leaving their chair. It is easy to take that moment personally, to think you said the wrong thing or loved the wrong way. But sometimes a compliment does not feel like praise to a guarded heart. It feels like a spotlight. If he has spent years being valued for control, competence, and never needing anyone, gentleness can sound like exposure. So you sit there, candle flickering, and you do something quietly brave. You do not chase the shift with extra jokes or extra reassurance. You let the silence have a second, long enough to reveal what it is actually made of. The next day you are in his car, stopped at a long red light that does not seem interested in changing. The pine-scented air freshener swings from the mirror like a small pendulum, back and forth, and the radio is low enough to feel like background breath. The street outside is ordinary. A couple crossing with grocery bags, someone jogging in a faded hoodie, the world moving like nothing is at stake. You are not trying to test him. You are not trying to corner him with meaning. You just say it because it is true, and because it feels clean on your tongue. I feel safe with you. His hands tighten around the steering wheel so suddenly it looks like pain. Not dramatic, not loud, just a hard grip, knuckles paling, as if your words turn the wheel into something he has to hold on to. He swallows, eyes fixed on the red light, and his mouth opens like he is about to answer. But nothing comes out. Inside you, the old alarm wakes up fast. Here it is, the retreat, the cooling, the moment where you become too much just for naming something real. I hate that I do this. Your mind wants to decide the ending right now, to protect you from hoping, but watch him closely. This does not look like boredom. It looks like a man trying to keep himself steady. The air freshener swings again, and he takes one slow breath like he is bracing for a wave he did not expect. Some men have learned to chase what they cannot have, and to relax only when love stays uncertain. When you offer safety, the game ends. There is no chase to hide behind, no distance to claim as an excuse, only the invitation to stay and be known. And for a man who has survived by never needing anyone, staying can feel like stepping into a room where he once got hurt. He finally speaks, but it is sideways. "Yeah, you know, I like being with you." And then he clears his throat, taps the wheel with one finger, as if that small movement can rearrange the moment into something less exposing. The light turns green and the car moves forward. But something in you stays at the red light, watching. You do not need to turn this into a rescue mission. You do not need to convince him that love is safe by making yourself smaller. You only need to notice the truth of what happened. Your softness did not repel him. It startled the part of him that has been guarding the door. Later, when he is alone, the house feels too quiet in the way it does after you have been there. A mug sits in the sink that is not his usual one. A strand of your hair is caught on the sleeve of his jacket. These small traces should feel sweet, but for him they feel like evidence, like proof that something is changing and he cannot pretend it is casual. He goes into the bathroom and turns on the shower hotter than he needs. Steam blooms across the mirror until his reflection disappears. And he likes that at first. It is easier to be a blur. It is easier to be the version of himself that can handle anything without wanting anything. Then, almost without thinking, he wipes one clear streak down the glass with the side of his hand. The gesture is simple, almost bored. But the moment is not. A single line of clarity appears, and in it he sees his own eyes looking back, tired and alert, like a man caught in the act of feeling. He stands there for a long minute, water running, towel hanging slightly crooked on the hook. The mirror shows him the face he shows the world, but behind it he can sense the other face, the one he does not post, the one that carries old losses like small stones in a pocket. If you love the real me, what do I have left to perform? The thought is not romantic to him. It is terrifying. This is where the internal battlefield actually lives. Not in the texts you wait for. Not in the pauses you try to decode. It lives in the private places where he can no longer distract himself with work, with noise, with being impressive. Love has a way of turning down the volume on all the things he used to hide behind. In Jung's language, the shadow is not evil. It is the unowned part of the soul. In plain life, it is the pile of feelings he learned to exile because they once made him weak in someone else's eyes. Wanting you, needing reassurance, being afraid of not being enough. Those parts do not disappear just because he became successful or charming. They just get pushed into the back room. And now you have knocked on the door of that back room without even trying. Your calm, your steadiness, your simple words in the car. They have made the hiding place less convincing. He can either keep living in performance, or he can risk becoming real. He turns off the shower. The steam thins. The mirror begins to fog again, slowly reclaiming the streak he cleared. He watches it happen and feels something like grief, because he knows he cannot unsee what he saw. He dries his hands, stares once more at the glass, and for the first time in a long time, he does not look away immediately. The video call starts soft, almost domestic, the kind where you can see the edge of his couch and the corner of a framed photo behind him. The light from the screen makes his face look cooler than it probably is in real life. Like moonlight. He asks how your day was, and you answer. And for a few minutes, it feels normal. Then you do the thing you have been practicing. The honest thing that is supposed to make love simpler. You ask, "What are you feeling?" Not as an interrogation, not as a trap, just as a door left open. He blinks once, slow, his mouth parts like he is about to speak, and then he does not. The silence stretches long enough that you can hear the faint buzz of your own phone speaker, and your chest tightens like it always does when a moment turns uncertain. Your mind starts sprinting. He is bored. He is regretting you. He is thinking of leaving. You watch his eyes drift off to the side, and it feels like being looked past, like being demoted in real time. This feels humiliating. You almost fill the space with something bright. A joke, a quick apology, anything to make it lighter. But you stop, you let the question sit there, and you watch him struggle, not with you, but with the act of naming anything at all. If we use Jung's word, unconscious, in plain life it just means the feelings he has not learned to hold in daylight. He is not always hiding from you. Sometimes he is staring at a blank wall inside himself because nobody taught him the language for what lives there. After a long pause, he exhales and says, "I do not know." Or maybe, "I am tired." The words sound small, almost disappointing, but you realize how hard it was for him to offer even that. You feel the inner story shift. Just a fraction. From "I am being rejected" to "he is being confronted." You do not reward the silence with chasing. You do not punish it with coldness either. You simply say, "Okay, we can take it slow." And you notice something subtle. The way his shoulders drop, like a man who has been holding a heavy box and finally sets it down for a second. A few nights later, you are at a small friends gathering, the kind that smells like wine and citrus and someone's expensive candle. The room is warm, crowded in a comfortable way, and laughter keeps bouncing off the walls like loose change. You stand near the kitchen island, fingers resting on the cool edge of the countertop, watching him move through people like he knows exactly who to be. He is magnetic here. He tells a story with perfect timing. Hands animated. Voice loud enough to command the room without sounding like he is trying. Everyone leans in, and when the punchline lands, the whole circle erupts. He grins, and for a second you can see why women fall for him quickly, because he can create light on demand. But your body notices something your eyes cannot ignore. His gaze keeps sliding past you, not cruelly, not like a snub, more like he is allergic to holding eye contact for too long. He brushes your arm when he walks by, casual, almost absent, and then returns to the crowd like the stage is safer than closeness. You feel that familiar confusion rise, the one that makes you question your own intuition. How can he be so alive with everyone else and so cautious with me? The room keeps laughing, glasses clinking, someone turning up the music, and you stand there with your own quiet ache like an extra coat you cannot take off. Here is the strange truth. Some men use performance as protection. If they can be impressive, they never have to be exposed. If they can be funny, they never have to be vulnerable. The room gives them applause, and applause feels like control. You watch him from across the island, and you realize the charm is not the problem. The problem is that the charm shows up most when he is trying not to feel when he is with you. The stakes change. With you, he cannot hide behind the script. At one point, he finally looks at you. Really looks. And it is only for a heartbeat. His expression flickers, like he almost wants to come closer. Then someone calls his name and he turns away too fast, laughing again, louder than he needs to. You do not storm out. You do not perform your own pain. You simply notice the pattern with a clear mind. The stage lights are bright, but the place you are asking him to meet you is quieter. And that is exactly why it scares him. After that night, you go home and you do not replay every second like a detective. You sit on the edge of your bed, kick off your shoes, and listen to the refrigerator hum in the next room. The quiet feels honest, and honesty is where you make decisions that protect your life. Vulnerability is a word people toss around like it means a dramatic confession. In plain life, it is much smaller and much harder. It is the ability to stay present when you are not polished, to answer a simple question without turning it into a performance, to let your face show what you feel for 2 seconds and not run. You think about that video call, the cool screen light on his cheeks, the long pause after you asked what he was feeling. You remember how quickly your mind tried to turn his silence into a verdict on you. I almost text, I do not. Because the real question is not, can I get him to open up? The real question is, what kind of closeness am I agreeing to? Here is a clean standard you can hold without making him the villain. If a man cannot stay in the room of honest feeling, he does not get the privileges of your intimacy, not your full access, not your constant availability, not your tender over-explaining. This is not punishment. It is reality. You can be kind and still be clear. You can say less and mean more. You can stop offering comfort as a substitute for commitment. And you can watch what happens when you do. Because if his fear is real, he will not just disappear into it. He will come back with something small but concrete. A slower tone. A real sentence. A willingness to be awkward and still stay. If he only returns with charm and jokes and half-promises, then you are not looking at growth. You are looking at a cycle that wants your warmth without earning it. The goal is not to force him into depth. The goal is to choose a love that can hold depth without making you pay for it. When you look back at the last few weeks, it is not one big moment that explains everything. It is a chain of small objects and small sensations that all point to the same truth. The silver spoon circling in the candlelight, the pine-scented air freshener swinging at the red light, the fogged mirror reclaiming his reflection, the bright laugh at the party that kept him safely out of reach. This is what an internal battlefield looks like from the outside. It looks like mixed signals. It looks like warmth followed by distance. It looks like a man who can show up everywhere except the one place you actually need him to show up. Inside the moment where feelings are real and stakes are personal. And this is where you have to be careful. Because women with big hearts tend to do the same move. They mistake a man's struggle for a sign that love is deep. They start translating his fear into romance. They start thinking, if I just stay soft enough, patient enough, he will finally feel safe and choose me. But his shadow is not your project. In plain life, that shadow is the part of him that would rather hide than risk being known. It is the part that believes exposure leads to abandonment. So it tries to control the story by staying slightly unavailable. If he keeps you guessing, he does not have to fully step in. You can hold compassion without dissolving your boundaries. You can understand why he is scared and still refuse to live on a leash of uncertainty. Love that asks you to shrink your needs into a polite whisper is not love you can build a life on. So when he goes quiet, you do not chase. When he performs, you do not clap for the performance. When he returns with half warmth, you do not hand him your whole heart as a tip. You stay calm. You stay clear. And you let his actions answer the question your words cannot. Because the deepest proof is not what he feels in private. It is whether he can bring that private truth into daylight and stay there with you. A week later, you are back in that car. stopped at another long red light. The same pine-scented air freshener swinging like a quiet metronome. The street looks ordinary again, but your choices are not. He reaches for your hand and his palm is warm, and you can feel the part of you that wants to pretend warmth is the same thing as safety. He says, "Sorry, I have been distant. Work has been a lot." His voice is careful, like he is placing words on the table one at a time to see if they break. You could accept that and move on, because it would be easier, and because you miss him. But you remember the candlelit spoon, the video call silence, the party laughter that never quite reached his eyes. You breathe and you give him the clean standard, not as punishment, not as a test, just as the shape of the life you are willing to live. I can be close with you, but I cannot do closeness that disappears when it gets real. If you need time, take time, but do not keep me in the fog. Say what you can, and let your actions match it. His throat works like he is swallowing something heavy. His grip on your hand tightens, not to hold you captive, but like he is trying to stay in the room with himself. This is the moment where his shadow steps forward, the part of him he has tried to exile. In plain life, it is the old fear that says, if she sees me, she will leave, so I should leave first. He looks at the red light, then back at you, and his face does something quieter than charm. It softens. "I am scared," he says, almost like he is admitting a small crime. "I do not know how to do this without messing it up." I notice how often women mistake a man's internal fear for external rejection. A pattern I keep seeing is that the more a connection feels real, the more some men reach for distraction, jokes, or sudden busyness. Here's what tends to happen. The moment you offer calm acceptance, his old defenses start looking unnecessary, and that can feel like danger to him. You do not rush to soothe him into comfort he has not earned. You simply stay steady and let the truth be the truth. Then learn, you say, and show me, because I am not here for a love that only exists when it is easy. The light turns green and the car moves forward, and it feels like a small beginning, not a promise. If he can bring his fear into daylight and still choose presence, something real can grow. If he cannot, you do not bargain your standards down to keep a connection alive. Does this feel like depth or like dismissal?